Imagine yourself in a grand art gallery. But instead of paintings, the walls are covered with digital screens, each one flashing, shouting, live streaming the thoughts, ambitions, and anxieties of everyone around you. An incessant flow of opinions, selfies, declarations, and promises. This is the world we live in. A gallery of ceaseless noise where the prize seems to go to whoever shouts the loudest, to whoever exposes themselves the fastest. We have become, almost without realizing it, actors in a theater of performative transparency. We believe our value lies in our ability to communicate, to share, to become an open book. Authenticity, we are told, is synonymous with total revelation. But now, look away from the screens. In the corner of the gallery, there is a solitary figure. They are not broadcasting, not speaking. They are simply observing. In their silence, they see not only what the screens show, but what they hide. The fear behind the bravado, the hesitation behind the declaration, the need for validation behind every post. While everyone is busy performing, this figure is understanding the entire script. This figure masters a forgotten art, a discipline that is almost subversive in our era, strategic silence. And its greatest master, a 16th century Florentine philosopher, left us the manual. His name, Niccolò Machiavelli, has become synonymous with manipulation, but perhaps we have misunderstood him. Perhaps his deepest lesson is not about what to do or say, but about the immense power that resides in what we deliberately leave unsaid. The currency of words, the invisible cost of expression. Machiavelli lived in an Italy of conspiracies and daggers, where a misplaced word could literally cost you your head. Today the consequences are less lethal, but the principle remains intact. Every word you utter is like spending a coin. The problem is, most of us are giving away our verbal fortune without even realizing its value. Think about it. First, speech forges chains. When you announce your intentions, like, I'm going to start this diet, I'm going to launch this project, I'm going to ask for a raise, you are not just expressing yourself. You are handing the world a whip to lash you with. You create an expectation, a finish line that is now public. If circumstances change, if your strategy evolves, you can no longer adapt silently. You need to explain, to justify, and any deviation is seen as failure or inconsistency. Silence, on the other hand, is freedom. It is the power to move without announcing, to adapt without apologizing. Second, speech is a map to your treasure. Every explanation you offer, every justification you elaborate, is a guided tour of your mind. You reveal your logic, your fears, your limitations. A cunning adversary doesn't need a spy. They just need to listen to you. Machiavelli wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." Today we could adapt this. The first method for estimating someone's strategic capacity is to measure the volume of their unnecessary revelations. And third, excessive speech dissolves gravity. Think of the sun. Its immense gravitational pull is due to its dense, concentrated mass. Authority works the same way. The leader who explains every decision, the expert who opines on every subject, the artist who details every step of their creative process, they dilute their mass. They become common, predictable. Machiavelli understood that power requires a certain distance, an aura of mystery. Silence concentrates your presence. It creates its own gravitational field, where your words, when finally spoken, land with the weight of a meteorite, not the lightness of dust. The Trinity of Silence, the three masks of power. Machiavellian silence is not a void. It is an active tool, a strategy with different facets. To master this art, we need to understand its three main manifestations, its three masks. The first is the collector's silence. Imagine a game of chess. An amateur player moves their first piece and proudly announces their grand strategy to the opponent. The master, however, remains quiet. They observe. They let the other player move, speak, reveal their tendencies, their patterns, their aggression, or their caution. The master's silence creates a vacuum of information that the opponent, uncomfortable, fills with their own secrets. This is what Machiavelli meant by "a wise man does at once what the fool does finally." The fool speaks first, handing over their map. The wise one listens first, collecting the other's map. In a negotiation, it is the principle that whoever makes the first offer often loses. In a discussion, it is the person who listens more than they speak who truly understands the hidden dynamics. It is a deliberate information asymmetry. You learn everything while revealing nothing. The second is the oracle's silence. In ancient times, people traveled to Delphi not to hear a speech, but to receive an enigmatic and powerful sentence. The oracle's power came not from the quantity of words, but from their rarity and weight. Modern authority works the same way. The CEO who speaks last in a meeting, after all the managers have made their points, is not being passive. They are assuming the position of judge. Their final words become the verdict. The person who does not react to every little provocation or online criticism projects an unshakable confidence. Silence, in this case, communicates, "Not everything deserves my energy. My attention is a valuable resource." As Machiavelli noted, a prince must imitate both the fox to recognize traps and the lion to frighten wolves. The fox's cunning lies in knowing that the lion's roar is more terrifying when it is rare. The third, and perhaps the most subtle, is the chameleon silence. Machiavelli famously stated, "It is safer to be feared than loved when one of the two must be lacking." But this idea extends further. It is safer to keep multiple interpretations possible than to commit to a single reality that might turn against you. Ambiguous silence is a blank canvas. By not defining yourself, by not fully clarifying your position, you allow others to project their own hopes and fears onto you. A politician who uses visionary but vague language allows different voters to hear exactly what they want. A leader who defines a clear what, our mission, but leaves the how open, empowers their team to innovate without being constrained by premature details. This is not about deceiving. It is about preserving flexibility. It is the strategic recognition that total clarity is a cage. It traps you in a single path, while ambiguity keeps you free to explore them all. It is the art of being all things to all people until the moment you decide to be something specific for someone. The mirror of the mind. The psychological alchemy of silence. But why is silence so powerful? Because it operates not on the level of logic, but on the level of fundamental human psychology. It is a catalyst for a powerful mental alchemy. First, silence generates projection. The human mind abhors a vacuum. When faced with silence, our psyche rushes to fill it. In an interrogation, the detective's silence can be more effective than any question, as the suspect, tormented by uncertainty, begins to fill the space with confessions. In a conversation, your attentive silence forces the other person to keep talking, often revealing more than they intended simply to relieve the discomfort of the void. You become a mirror, and they, looking at you, see only themselves and their own secrets. Second, silence inverts the power dynamic. Human communication is a subtle dance of status. The person who talks incessantly, who seeks to fill every pause, is subliminally seeking approval. They are saying, "Please listen to me, please validate me." The person who is comfortable in silence, who speaks selectively, assumes the role of the one who grants validation. They do not seek, they judge. This is the echo of Machiavelli's famous maxim, "The supplicant is not feared." Power does not ask for permission to speak. It waits for the right moment to do so. Third, silence cultivates mystique. Machiavelli observed that men in general judge more by the eyes than by the hands, for everyone can see, but few can feel. That which is fully exposed, fully understood, becomes mundane. The leader who shares every doubt, every step of their decision-making process, becomes just another colleague. The leader who presents the conclusion while keeping the deliberative process in reserve maintains an aura of superior capability. Mystery is not about deceit, it is about the perception of depth. People do not follow what is common. They are drawn to that which seems extraordinary. The siren of transparency, the trap of modern culture. And here we arrive at the great Machiavellian heresy for our time. Our culture has erected a new god, transparency. Be authentic. Share your truth. Open communication is key. These are well-intentioned mantras, but they are strategically dangerous. Machiavelli wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." This sounds brutal, but its essence is about adaptation. The culture of transparency demands that we chain ourselves to past declarations in the name of consistency, sacrificing flexibility in the present. Think of transparency in the workplace. It is the impulse to share an unfinished project, exposing it to criticism before it is strong enough to defend itself. It is the pressure to give radically candid feedback in all situations, often causing unnecessary wounds where discretion would have been more effective. In personal relationships, it is the compulsion to confess every past mistake or to detail every future plan, creating dramas and expectations that could have been avoided. Machiavelli would see this not as a virtue, but as a colossal strategic mistake, a voluntary surrender of power. The transparent person becomes predictable, and the predictable person is easy to control. The Machiavellian communicator does not speak to express themselves. They speak to achieve an objective. They are not silent to deceive. They are silent to preserve their options. They understand that the most powerful authenticity is not total revelation, but total self-mastery. The siren of transparency, the trap of modern culture. And here we arrive at the great Machiavellian heresy for our time. Our culture has erected a new god, transparency. Be authentic. Share your truth. Open communication is key. These are well-intentioned mantras, but they are strategically dangerous. Machiavelli wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." This sounds brutal, but its essence is about adaptation. The culture of transparency demands that we chain ourselves to past declarations in the name of consistency, sacrificing flexibility in the present. Think of transparency in the workplace. It is the impulse to share an unfinished project, exposing it to criticism before it is strong enough to defend itself. It is the pressure to give radically candid feedback in all situations, often causing unnecessary wounds where discretion would have been more effective. In personal relationships, it is the compulsion to confess every past mistake or to detail every future plan, creating dramas and expectations that could have been avoided. Machiavelli would see this not as a virtue, but as a colossal strategic mistake, a voluntary surrender of power. The transparent person becomes predictable, and the predictable person is easy to control. The Machiavellian communicator does not speak to express themselves. They speak to achieve an objective. They are not silent to deceive. They are silent to preserve their options. They understand that the most powerful authenticity is not total revelation, but total self-mastery. Forging the blade. How to practice the discipline of silence. How, then, can we forge this blade of silence in our own lives? It is not about becoming a taciturn monk, but about developing the discipline to use speech like a scalpel, not a hammer. First, practice asymmetrical listening. In any important interaction, set a rule for yourself. Understand the other's position completely before you reveal your own. Turn statements into questions. Instead of saying, "I think we should do X," ask, "What are your concerns about Y?" Or, "How do you see the ideal path for Z?" Collect data. Let the other side empty their inventory of information first. Second, cultivate constructive ambiguity. Resist the need to provide specificity when it is not required. Instead of detailing a 5-step plan for your team, define the vision and the destination, and invite them to help draw the map. This not only preserves your flexibility, but also generates engagement and ownership. Third, learn to love the pause. Silence in a conversation is uncomfortable for most people. Learn to be the person who is comfortable in that space. When you make a proposal, be silent. Do not justify it. Do not weaken it. Let it hang in the air. Let the other side be the first to break the silence. Often, they will break it with a concession. When you are criticized, breathe and listen to the end without interrupting. The pause before your response will give you time to think and will project an image of control and resilience. In the end, Machiavelli's strategy of silence is not about muteness. It is about the whisper. In a world of screams, a well-placed whisper is deafening. The master of this art creates a deliberate contrast between what is said and what is withheld. And in that contrast lies power. Your words gain weight because they are rare. Your positions generate interest because they are revealed strategically. Your influence expands because it is exercised with surgical precision. The final irony is that the greatest practitioners of this art remain invisible. We notice and discuss the loud, the transparent, the performative. The masters of silence, however, simply achieve their objectives. They win while others are still talking about how to win. This is just one of the lost arts we strive to rediscover here at Sophonixis. If this journey into the power of silence resonated with you, and you wish to continue deciphering the hidden codes of human psychology and strategy, I invite you to join our community. Subscribe now and activate notifications so we can explore the next enigma together. perhaps Machiavelli himself is the greatest example. His name is synonymous with cynicism, but his true message is much deeper. He taught us that power does not always come from force or fraud, but often from simply knowing when to shut up and let the other's own reality do the work for you. In our age of information overload, opinion saturation, and compulsive sharing, this Machiavellian code offers a radical path to influence. Observe more, speak less, reveal selectively, and let your results speak louder than your words. In the great gallery of noise, do not be just another flashing screen. Be the silent observer who understands the game. Because in the end, in the theater of power, it is not the one with the microphone who wins, but the one who controls the script.